After we buried Lois, we went back home. It was time for us to get our act together, move forward. It was summer because she died on June the 22nd, and the kids were going to be home until September. Grandma DeSanto and Aunt Catherine Muller came over at least once or twice a week to help us through that period of time of adjustment, uh, which was very helpful. Uh, and we did that throughout the summer. During that same summer, I completed my term of office as president of the Holy Name Society for the church, and I completed that as of September, so that now some time was more available to me. Uh, the Holy Name Society had about 125 active members, and we'd meet once a month, and we'd have various kinds of activities going on. So that was a transitional thing which was important for me to close out and close out well. And I left it with Tim Sullivan, who became the president thereafter. I had also been very active in the Knights of Columbus, where I had become a third degree knight in 1964 and was an active member of the Knights of Columbus and did various things like the debate club, the annual picnic, and Italian American night, and things of that sort. But during that summer, I had to withdraw from all of that, which I did. And in September, I began transporting Beth and Matt to my mother's house every week. I drove them there on Sunday, picked them up on Friday. She lived in Kenilworth, New Jersey, which was about an hour and a half away. So every Friday after work, I'd pick them up and I'd drive there. I'd go to Kenilworth, pick them up and bring them home. I didn't want them to be away from their brothers and sisters for any length of time, but always in the care and custody of my mother or Lois's mother, one way or the other. And so that continued on for a whole year. While that was going on, I was working, spending time at home with the kids, getting to know each of my children better than I ever did before. And I realized that Susan was taking over almost immediately, and I had to be careful of that because I was always aware of the fact that children that are left without a parent sometimes get totally disrupted in their living and never get back on track. And so I was very wary about that fact. But she was very good and very helpful, and Kathy was always by her side helping her with whatever needed to be done. So one night in October, Susan, I'm in the kitchen reading the Long Island Catholic and reading the activities of the day, which I did on a regular basis. And Susan and Kathy came walking in, and Susan says, "Dad, why don't you go out tonight? Find a place to go. Have a, you know a lot of people, you know a lot of places. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll take care of the kids. You don't have to worry about a thing." Right? Susan was all of 11 at the time. So I said, or 12. So I said, okay. And they went back inside, not knowing that they wanted to watch the beauty contest that was on television that night. And so they were glad to see me go. Well, I didn't decide to go until a few minutes later when I read St. Anne's in Brentwood had a St. Monica's Guild for widows and widowers. I said, yeah, I'll go see, right? And I did that. So I drove out to Brentwood, it's about 45 minutes away, never been there before, walked into St. Anne's and Breadbook, and of course, what do I walk into but a widow and widowers club with about 125 people. There were about 5 men, and the rest were not men. And I go walking in and go walking down to the basement where they are, and of course there are young, old, in between, women, and sitting to the left as I'm walking down the steps is this cute little lady, right, conducting the meeting. Turns out that that was Dolores, who was the chair lady of new members. So she was talking to the new members. As I'm walking down the stairs, someone else grabs a hold of me. They sit me down. I meet Pat, who is the president of the group. I fill out some papers which they want me to fill out, and they introduce me to a few people. We have a nice little time, right? While we're there, I meet a lady who seemed very pleasant, and we got talking together, decided we'd have a date. And so we had a date, and we went to a restaurant on the water in Patchogue. Her name escapes me at this point, but we had a very nice evening until she mentioned that her husband had been a member of the Knights of Columbus. And I said, "Oh, how wonderful." "No," she said, "how horrible." I said, "Why would you say that?" And she said, "Because when my husband became sick, he spent the last days with the Knights of Columbus, not with me," which was a very interesting cycle.
Okay.
Start again.
Okay, let's start again right where, when you went out on a date with this lady. You went to a restaurant in Patchogue.
Okay.
So just start with that sentence and we'll end it in
I
somehow.
remember her name.
Okay. Oh, okay, good.
Sorry. Yes,
Okay, cool.
Okay, go ahead.
So Lorraine and I went on a date. We went to a restaurant in Patchogue. It was right on the water. It was a fish restaurant, and we had a nice time. However, during that time, we started to talk about various things. I had mentioned that I was a member of the Knights of Columbus, and she said that she didn't like the Knights. And I asked her why. And she said because her husband, while he was dying, spent most of his nights with the Knights of Columbus. He did not spend them with her. So I realized that she and I could not have any relationship. It was a nice dinner. We enjoyed that very much. We never went out again. However, being a member of the St. Monica's Guild, it was a very active guild. And although there were very few men involved in it, there were a few, and the ladies would have different activities at different times. One lady had us over to her house for cocktails and conversation. She was a ballet dancer, and she showed us her ballerina studio and how things worked there, and that was very nice. And then there was another lady whose name was Barbara King. She was a widow of a fireman, and she was economically pretty affluent as a result, although she was a very lonely woman, and that became clear very, very shortly thereafter. But one night I was at a cocktail party in the basement of one of the other ladies, and there was this beautiful woman who walked by me. It turned out that I didn't know her name at that point, but her name was Dolores. I found out later on that she was the chair lady of new members and also the chair lady of the annual Christmas party for children of the St. Monica's Club. At a meeting, Dolores said, I'm going to need help at the Christmas party. If anyone can do that, I'd appreciate it. Or here's my phone number, and you could call me. So I called her, and I said, I can help. I've got 6 kids, though. And she said, bring them along. I got 5. It's okay. So we went to the annual Christmas party. Well, that was very interesting. She really wanted somebody who could lift the sodas, put them in the right place, help with the various things on stage, and organize and follow orders. So I did all of those things. And while I was doing it, she organized the stage craft, and so she had a couple of kids doing dances. She asked who could tell a story, and Stephen, my son Stephen, stepped forward and told a couple of jokes. And so it turned out to be a wonderful activity. And Beth, who was a little toddler at the time, toddled across the stage. And Dolores told me subsequently she fell in love with her immediately. Well, having had a good experience, I called Dolores and I said, let's go out to dinner. And she said, I haven't had a date since my husband died. I said, well, neither have I. Well, I did have one, but not. I said, so I went and we had a date. But before we had a date, I have to tell you about a little story before we had the Christmas party. It seems like there was a pizza party in late November, and we went to the pizza party. I went to the pizza party and everybody else did, and there was a dance to go along with the pizza party. And the pizza party was in a pizza joint where they had a dance floor and they had a jukebox, which was wonderful. The president of the club asked me to be sure that I was not, that I spread myself thin, because I was the only man who really could dance. The others could do some, but so I danced. And at one point, I saw Dolores, and I danced with her. And I was smoking a cigar as I was dancing. Cute stuff, I'll tell you. And we had a nice dance. And at the end of the dance, I said to her, well, Pat told me I have to spread myself thin, so it's been a pleasure, right? So I go and dance with somebody else, and I left her in the middle of the floor, and she went on her way. However, shortly thereafter, the party ended. And I went home, and as I go home, I'm scratching my head, and I smell arpège. Arpège was a perfume at the time. Arpège was the perfume that Lois used to use. Arpège was the perfume that Dolores had on. Well, it got me thinking that it was time for me to start looking at sold to help with the Christmas party. After the Christmas party, I called and asked her for a Christmas date. So on December 21st, 1967, Dolores and I went on our first date. We went to the Smithtown House, which was a local cabaret, which was very pleasant. They had a piano player right at the front of the eating area. We sat right next to the piano player. I asked him if he could play the song Dolores. Well, Dolores was always a very active, fast kind of song. He played it as a romantic ballad. Absolutely beautiful. It was very touching. When we first were entering the restaurant, a few people who were reveling came out. They were from the Grumman Aircraft Company, and they were having their annual Christmas party, at the Smithtown restaurant, and one of the fellows comes out, and he's saying Merry Christmas to all his friends. Turns around, he sees Dolores, he gives her a big hug and a kiss, and then he turns to me and says, oh my God, I can't forget you. So he gives me a big hug and a kiss, and of course we enter the place laughing because this was very unexpected, and it turned out to be so pleasant. We had a meal of Chateaubriand and escargot. Now, she had not been on a date for years, and I was always a little capable of ordering. And she said to me, would you order for us? So I said, Chateaubriand. I said, one end raw, the other end well done, because she liked well done. And I said, and escargot. And she said, oh, escargot, I've never had that. I said, that's wonderful. Well, they delivered the escargot, and she said, oh my God, they're snails. Turns out that she loved them. She ate the snails, and she loved them. From then on, whenever we had a chance to get escargot, she got them without a question. That was our first date. Well, in retrospect, what had happened, after the pizza party, she had gone home, and her mother was there in Smithtown, and her mother said, did you meet any interesting person? And she said, yes, I met Mr. Obnoxious. And she said, what was Mr. Obnoxious like? And she said, well, two things. He smoked a cigar as we were dancing, and then at the end of the dance he left me in the middle of the floor, and so I got to spread myself thin. Well, that experience carried over. So the night that I had my first date with her, I went to pick her up, and I brought her a little bottle of Kahlua. I thought she would like that, which she did. And her mother said to her before I arrived, who is this Sam that is coming? And she said, oh, remember Mr. Obnoxious? I arrived on the scene to pick her up, and her two youngest kids, Kathleen and Donna, see me sitting on the couch waiting for her to get ready, and they get running across the living room, jumped on my lap and said, are you going to be our new daddy? And I said, we'll have to see about that. And so that's the way we began.